we're in a different war. We are in a war that is as much a cultural struggle as it is a military struggle that demands subtlety, and where, in the case of this sort of training, not only is the senior leadership need to put on the mantle of diplomacy, but so does the young corporal. And that is largely the intent of this training.
Junior Marines will tend to ask me, sir, why the hell do I care? We do kinetic ops really well. And my answer to them is because you want fewer problems on the battlefield. I put up a really simple slide. Supportive, non-hostile, hostile. Our goal, yeah, we can do it kinetically, but we can also do it with a smile and a wave, is to take them from hostile, they're shooting at us, they're trying to destabilize Iraq, to at least non-hostile. And I beg you to teach your lance corporals on the ground that concept.
When 1st Marine Division was preparing to return to Iraq late 2003, early 2004, the division commander at the time, a Major General Mattis, who had led the assault into Afghanistan, then who had led the assault into Iraq, recognized the need for certain kinds of training that were not traditional. The earliest one was at March Air Reserve Base, where we had mock Iraqi towns with buildings and firm bases and things of that sort. That evolved by 2005 to 29 Palms Marine Corps Base, where over time they have built a series of small Iraqi villages, forcing commanders to have to deal with issues in a more realistic way.
There's so many damn locks over there, you know, their cabinets are locked, their trunks are locked, their closets are locked, their shitters are locked, everything's locked. Okay, now if the head of household is with us, he brings the keys along, we can just, hey, sir, would you please mind unlocking this for us? All right, because if we don't, then we have to either go get him, have him unlock everything one at a time, or we got to break the lock.
لكن حسب ما سمعت البارحه كنت بالجامعه ويا الامام بالمسجد كنا سمعنا من الناس يقول لك وزاره الداخليه
try to articulate what is the purpose of our program here. It's really to get the Marines familiar, proficient, and confident in urban operations, operating in an urban environment amongst a population that they're not certain if they're all friendly, if they're all neutral, if they're all unfriendly. And using our theme of no better friend, no worse enemy, learn who can they trust, who can they deal with, how do they deal with this population, how do we create a program that really trains Marines to the current fight, you know, that counterinsurgency, that urban fight where tactical cultural awareness is important, dealing with the population properly is mission essential.
I do welcome you here in town, you and your staff. But there's a few things that I'd like to mention to you.
What do we got? What do we got? Don't be vague in the question.
Okay, he has information about his neighbors.
Never pay money for information. You might get a little bit edgy. Just don't take immediate notes. You shouldn't crack a smile. You shouldn't giggle and laugh at that stuff. So just strike up that casual conversation and you might get better answers. Never set up specific future meetings.
Yeah, if you're just in a radius,
avoid the temptation. No, stop. Just tell me where the insurgents are.
Is he down?
We will be here longer, and we are here to help and improve the situation.
احنا هنا نساعدهم واحنا هنا حتى نساعد نحسن.
My name is Gabriel Durate. I'm Iraqi. I live in the United States, San Diego. We play and role play Iraqis as back in Iraq. We give the idea how's the life look like over in Iraq, so we're doing the same thing here to get the Marines trained good, so when they're going back in Iraq, make sure they know what they're doing and then how to deal with the people. We do culture class for them, teach them how's the Iraqi's way, what religion they have, what they respect, and the way they not respect, and they were about disrespect.
Right now they're setting up their checkpoint operations. And then we'll give them more than one thing to deal with inside checkpoint operations. We'll give them a complex thing to deal with. As in, we'll have a vehicle blow up, and then we'll give them a complex ambush, small arms fire.
Hey, we got fire right here, right here. Hey, you see anything? Negative.
A common mistake, I think, inside checkpoint operations is the escalation of force. When is it right for them to actually engage a vehicle when it's done something wrong? Making sure that you can't just shoot somebody because they didn't stop at a stop sign.
Coming in, landing behind you.
Go north and then loop around and north of that bomb. Don't fly into them. There goes one.
What we're giving them here is muscle memory. Here, I can go through 10 scenarios, one right after the other, where out in that field, I would have only had time to do one. You're taking the 18, 19, 20-year-old Marine. He's got his hands on the butterfly triggers. He has life and death in his hands. He's the one that has to decide, is that a vehicle-borne IED, or is that a mama and 5 kids just scared and driving erratically? If I show it to him enough in here, which is the difference between the two, then when he gets in country, we have less chance of killing the innocent. We're not killers, we're professional killers. We don't kill women and children. We kill those people that are trying to kill us.
You guys aren't going to watch. There's 3 of you on there right now. If I'm an insurgent and I got some 500-pound bombs under it, I'll take all 3 of you out in one shot. Medic 1900, heavy fire from the south. All the commanders, CSC, be advised, heavy gunfire in the back. Do you need assistance?
We are green,
west to eastbound on Albany. Why? How do you want me to approach? Is the LZ set up?
Land about 300 to 400 meters ahead.
Is that the RPG gunner?
I'll copy over.
I will guarantee you that if you come back here this summer, when my next 2 battalions are undergoing this experience prior to deploying, it will be that much more complex and that much larger in scope, because we have just scratched the surface as to what we can do in this very complex challenge.
Essentially, I went to the Cultural Competency Conference at Yale University. Now, the objective of the conference was to address, at what level should cultural training occur, what should the content of cultural training be. There weren't the discussions over, we need to learn culture in order to learn how to better target our opponents. There were almost no references to the weaponization of culture.
I think there's a tremendous tension between old-fashioned thinking about war and modern conditions. I won't even say battlefield conditions, because wars are not fought on battlefields anymore. And this is very difficult for traditional armies to figure out. The United States is grappling with it in Iraq and Afghanistan, as it did in Vietnam, with very limited success.
By the year 2005, the U.S. military has run into big trouble in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's a realization at that time that there needs to be a new approach to fighting these wars.
All of the programs and all of the initiatives changes the training environment at 29 Palms, the change to curriculum within the war colleges and the staff colleges. All of these things are part of a reform movement inside Department of Defense that grew out first of this discourse, this critical discourse on culture.
We started looking into aspects of cultural awareness in the military back in 2004, and it was prompted by really a reaction to the press coverage of operations in Iraq. Marines going in with the idea that a wave would be more effective than a gun, handing out footballs, growing mustaches in order to develop rapport with Iraqis. All of this stuff struck us as interesting because we were interested in how the military were thinking about culture, and especially how they seemed to be operationalizing culture.
Each one of these balls has a fallen soldier's name on it that have came to Iraq trying to help kids just like you.
Culture was becoming the killer variable with a military that was being tasked to have war among the people. Would this somehow pacify the military to bring culture into it? Or the corollary of this, would it somehow another militarize peacemaking?
My sole purpose is to get you down range, let you whoop some butt, set you up for success, bring you back up range, and debrief you, all right? Don't be the platoon that I do this to. Don't make me call timeout. If I call timeout, that means you just get ate up. It's mind over matter, right? If you don't mind, then what? It don't matter. I'm hearing heavy gunfire in the back. Do you need assistance?
The enemy was always the enemy, and that's what they taught us to believe, and certainly to be in the military and to be a soldier, a good soldier, as they want you to be, there's an indoctrination process to that, and in order to storm the hill and risk your life, you need that sort of binary decision making. You need to sort of a black and white attitude about it, where that's the enemy. If you have the moment to think in tones of gray, well, that guy has a kid and this, and maybe he's not so bad. I understand why he hates us. I mean, we'll never fight. It'll never happen, and we'll never storm the hill, and we'll probably get shot ourselves.
So the question then becomes, can you take guys like the Marines and our airborne soldiers, who everyone knows are tough guys, and you can sort of say, we want you to be kinder and gentler and culturally aware. Yes, you can to a certain extent. You can tell them don't be bullies, and they'll get that concept. But can you turn them into diplomats or something? No. They're fundamentally killers. They're professional killers because they do it for the sake of the country. But when you say every Marine is a rifleman, what do you do with a rifle? You shoot somebody else.
It's a casualty drill. What's going to happen is there'll be a role player out there who shoots at them, and then basically the lieutenants will enter this building where they find us. They're briefed in their order that they're looking for 2 lost Marines. We're the lost Marines. The Marine in there's got a head trauma that they got to treat, and then I'll have an open tib-fib fracture with arterial bleeding and a gunshot wound through and through. Basically, they have to come in here. They have a shoot-no-shoot scenario in there. They go in there. The prisoner's being interrogated. They have to decide whether to shoot that guy or to take him EPW. And then they have to treat us and get us medevac out of here in time.
Every area of operations is different. Every town, every village has a different mix. And we need to find what's the truth and what's the perception there, because frequently perception is more important than actual truth anyway, and particularly in the society there. And we need to base our actions on the truth that we find, not the truth that we find from talking to each other as Americans, but on the truth that we find from talking to Iraqis about what they see and what they think.
If you talk to the young men and women who want to be officers in the United States Armed Forces, you will find an extraordinary number of people who pay very close attention to the language, the culture, the history, the geography, the makeup of Iraq and of Afghanistan. who could serve as anthropologists, many of them, as well as teachers, as well as they could as soldiers. It's not just a military question. All our cultural and intellectual sinew will be required in this battle.
It's very helpful. It's better to do it than not to do it, so practice and train so when we're out there we can do better stuff.
The Arabic language and some of the Arabic culture helps you not to offend the people over there. Helps you be able to, tell them, hey, we're friends.
My name is Lance Corporal Olaire.
Lance Corporal Nicholas Tiff. My name is Carl Alves, rank Lance Corporal. 1st Squad, 3rd Platoon, Charlie Company, 125.
My name is PST Songfala. My first name is Dilfong.
I'm ready. I got a bunch of good guys around here. Everybody that we've been with so far is real good, and I got good thoughts of coming back home.
We're all human. World War I was the chemist war, World War II was a physicist war, World War III was, I guess this is the Cold War, the information war, and World War IV marks the end of information warfare and a return to Clausewitz where focuses again human beings, not technology.
The Pentagon has a new strategy in Iraq and Afghanistan. An experimental $40 million program called the Human Terrain System has begun enlisting recruits of a different kind to win the battle of hearts and minds. They have graduate degrees in anthropology and serve as cultural advisors to the U.S. military. Some military analysts have hailed the program as the 21st century equivalent of a Vietnam-era military project called CORDS, or Civil Operations and Revolutionary Development Support. But the move has anthropologists up in arms. They point to the ethical implications of renewing a program like CORDS that assassinated over 26,000 suspected Viet Cong. In September, a group of scholars formed a network of concerned anthropologists, inspired by physicists who opposed the Reagan-era Star Wars program.
We were created from an urgent need in the middle of a war 5 years into it. It was something that was needed now. The focus is humanity, the focus is on the population. Terrain, when you talk about terrain, military people, military professionals are very comfortable with the idea of terrain. When you put the two together, it gives them a picture of the new environment that they're operating in. In other words, a human terrain that you have to understand the intricacies and the details of, just like you understand that of geographic terrain.
The goal of the program really is to use the knowledge and wisdom and methodologies of social science to enable the military to complete their mission more effectively with less loss of human life, both military and civilian, and to help the military to think about things from somebody else's point of view so that their activities are harmonized, so that they are operating in conjunction, in partnership with those local communities.
Team 1, Mike Williams, team leader here, sir. And we've got 2 others, Moran, who's an analyst, and Steve, who is a research manager.
The U.S. military is expanding a program in Iraq to send teams of anthropologists and social scientists across the country, acting as cultural analysts for U.S. forces.
So we go out to the villages and to the cities and talk to the Iraqis, get an idea of their perceptions, their feelings, basically what they're thinking about their culture. And then we take that back to the military so they have a better understanding of the local population.
The human terrain teams have been portrayed by proponents as nothing more than a kind of hearts and minds campaign. If you look at internal discussions in journals like Military Review, you find that they're more candid about what the aims of the human terrain program are. And according to those sources, human terrain is really about counterinsurgency, really about finding out who the bad guys are, and relating that information up the chain of command.
You know, the strongest argument that people have made who want to convince anthropologists to help in this endeavor is that anthropologists' help will create a more humane approach on the part of the U.S. military towards the Iraqi people. And my argument, and I think the argument of many anthropologists, is that that is a very seductive idea, that you would be able to help in a situation of crisis. What I think one has to step back and ask is, help what? Help whom to do what?
While the practice of deploying anthropologists is still considered counterinsurgency, commanders here say their information is not being used for traditional kinetic military fighting. Anthropologists like Jean and Nancy are able to bring a uniquely humanist touch to understanding Iraqis.
I think it's very appropriate that if academics believe that they understand a culture, that they help out, because we're all under attack by Al-Qaeda. And for some Americans to say, oh, I'm an academic and therefore I'm not involved in this, is a lot of baloney. Al-Qaeda will kill an American in an academic setting as fast as he'll kill an American anywhere else. So I am all in favor of people who are anthropologists, social scientists, helping our military. And it makes things better because we're not out to oppress anybody, but we don't want them killing Americans.
Well, I'm sure that there are plenty of senior military leaders who perfectly well understand that the Americans are involved in an imperial venture in the US, that they've stepped into the shoes of the British and the French in that region, and that they're trying to subjugate another country because they want to secure American access to resources, especially oil, and they need military bases in that region. And they're quite pragmatic realists who know perfectly well what the US is up to. But there is a certain kind of rhetoric that's used to gild the lily about how Americans have a mission to spread democracy, Americans only have the well-being of other people in mind. How could anyone possibly oppose what the Americans are doing? So I think once you go down that second track and start to assume that the Americans are beneficent, then instead of reading resistance as inevitable resistance to foreign occupation, you start to think of it as some kind of cultural miscommunication. And you start to ask naive, misshapen questions. You know, if we only understood their culture better, how could we make them like us? Why do they hate us so much? They hate us because we're occupying their country, not because we don't understand their hand signals, and because occasionally we mistreat their women. So if you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer, and more people on both sides will die.
I want to know why they hate us. And I haven't been given a satisfactory answer to that. Can you tell me why they hate us? And don't tell me it's because we're rich and free. I don't know anybody in the world who wouldn't like to be rich and free, by the way. Is there another answer?
Hey! You! Put the weapon down!
Military strategists would say that public relations is the primary weapon of modern war. And to be able to convince the U.S. public that this war is being fought humanely and in a smart way, without repeating the mistakes of the past, is very, very important to the U.S. military. Whatever anthropologists do in the field, they will be doing that, which is to say they will be helping to convince people that smart PhDs with knowledge of local societies are out there making this war a better, kinder war.
And so what you have is, on the one side, an argument that this is unethical, that it is enabling flawed policies, and it is immoral to let it continue. And on the other side, you have a group of people who are saying this is completely within the realm of professional ethics, especially those non-anthropologists, that this is about changing policy. It's not about deciding policy. And that this is my moral obligation.
I kept wishing that I could take each soldier who talked to me to some of the places that I had gone. And at the same time, I thought, could I be a warrior, a fighter, if I had seen some of the things that I have seen? Their mission is to basically capture and secure territory and win as much as they can. We talk about this soldier diplomat idea, hearts and minds. It's a real challenge for them. I have a great friend in Tehran who said at the beginning of this war, remember, Jackie, culture is not like Nescafe. It's not something you can just add water and stir.
Well, there's an Arab culture thing that they really don't like to be stripped naked and paraded in front of women who jeer at them for being naked. Last I looked, it applies in our culture as well. But the fact that it was being presented as some peculiarity of the Arab, Muslim, Iraqi cultural sensibility, that this was sort of a kind of psyops and that it was exploiting a vulnerability and using everything against your enemy that you could, including their fear of nakedness, their fear of dogs. Arabs don't like dogs. Well, nobody likes to be stripped naked, hooded, chained to a wall and have a lunging German shepherd snapping at his crotch. That doesn't seem to me to be a peculiarity of the Arab mind. And so it was all about just creating some idea of difference, vulnerability, and therefore license to do things to them that you would not properly be able to do to us.
There used to be a time in the 50s when academic anthropologists thought that you could write a sort of cultural grammar book. Now, I think the reason the Pentagon has become interested in culture is that they subscribe to that 1950s version of culture. If culture is complex, multi-layered, shifting, contradictory, it's really not much use to them. They want culture in a wallet. They want culture that you can put into a computer program. So the irony is, I think, that the military is interested in a version of culture that doesn't exist. They're on a fool's errand.
Welcome to Tactical Language and Culture Training Systems. The courses teach how to communicate in foreign languages and cultures by playing immersive, interactive 3D video games that simulate real-life communications involving spoken dialogues and cultural protocols. The game does not follow a narrow script. Its dialogue evolves based on what you say and do. If you develop rapport with the Iraqis, they cooperate with you. If you are rude, they are hostile and uncooperative.
مرحبا ابني.
مرحبا سيد.
وين أبو البيت؟
Green pluses indicate that the Iraqis' opinion of you just went up because you showed cultural sensitivity.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام.
إحنا من قوات التحالف. تنفتش البيوت بهالمنطقة.
ماكو لزوم للتفتيش هنا.
إحنا لازم ناخذك ويانا للتحقيق.
لا، ليش؟ لازم أبقى ويا أهلي.
Bad move. You did not have any reason to detain this man. He had no connection to militias, but he may now consider joining.
These people getting paid $300 a day. What? And they could have paid me $300 a day for that. You gotta be shitting me. So who are they? They get $300 a day for that. Tax free too, I imagine. They could pay me $300 a day for that. I've been glad to do it. Damn it.
Yeah, I'm gonna send my wife out here. No, that can't be. Or they pay all of them $300 and they got to split it up, right?
We wanted to show that we were good people and we were here to help rebuild and look what we're doing for you. And we brought a duffel bag full of money that we were going to distribute in order to build or to refurbish initially a children's school building. And then of course, we were doing a good thing. And of course, now you, if you're the person that I was trying to do this good deed for, I expected some gratitude and again to reinforce that I'm a good guy because I am trying to help you. Well, we got the opposite response.
I have a close friend that was in Abu Ghraib. We served in the army together
And he's got a lot of problems. He's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. He's on 100% disability now, and I've watched him crumble as a person and never be the same. It's sad. I think he knew it would happen. I knew it would happen. He was a great interrogator, and he wasn't a great interrogator because he knew how to, twist a person's arm. He was a great interrogator because he understands human nature, and he understands what you feel like on the other side, and therefore he has a great sense of empathy, and it was that empathy that's destroying him as a person, because he was put into a situation where he felt bad for the Iraqi people, he felt bad for the American soldiers, and he wanted to fix everybody, and he couldn't fix anybody.
I think this was part and parcel of the general tone at the conference was their goal should now be about making better human beings and how this applies to warfare. They're proposing a Manhattan Project for the human sciences. And I think...
Michael first came to my office and he already had started with the humanitarianism and war project. He, and I suppose like me, we're both people who came from mixed backgrounds, mixed cultures. And when you're a child, you have different options. You have the option of choosing one culture over another, which is a simpler option, or you have the option of trying to reconcile very powerful forces. And from the earliest stages, in a way not rejecting either your mother or your father, you have to contend with bringing things together. And I think out of that, you get a seriousness of purpose, and more importantly, really a curiosity.
When we started the Military Cultural Awareness Project, he was the first guy I reached out to because he was one of the few people who had the expertise in Afghanistan, but also had the theoretical chops to understand why this was something new and something that needed to be studied to understand this transformation of the military. So he was working against two different codes. One, the code he had learned as a scholar of objective distance, and then one he had learned as a concerned activist, that you need to get in and get dirty, you need to get up close to the war machine.
What's essentially happening is people are adopting anthropology's methods for studying the other without adopting either their ethics or their perspectives. If you are involved, to what extent can you dictate a freedom or an ability not to provide information? And what I mean by that is if you are engaged with military actors on the ground and that space between reducing otherness and potentially being involved in targeting starts to get blurred, when can you say, I'm not simply going to provide that information to you? And whether that's a space that can actually be negotiated. Or is that just naive?
And then we know the rest. He became less of a researcher and more of a practitioner.
Yesterday I was sort of going through my notes and I was like, well, what are the objectives here? Like you said, what is the why? The center of gravity is now the perception of civilians. And so victory is defined as capturing the psychocultural high ground. As a consequence of this, empathy is the new key weapon of war.
JC, so I've been asked to go out to Afghanistan with the Army as part of a human terrain advising unit. I indicated I wasn't available until September, finishing the dissertation. Instead, they've asked me to serve as a subject matter expert while here at Watson. Thoughts?
He had a sense of romantic history. At the same time, he didn't particularly want to hurt anybody. And peacekeeping offered a very good solution to that dilemma. In his case, there was the possibility of a transition from a peacekeeping context into another context. There was a path already laid in a way. And in a sense that romantic history of his enabled him to accept doing this particular job. And I think that played into it, the ability to put on a uniform and join a side.
Bhatia, sorry I've been out of contact since we were last in contact. The Army option you passed on is an interesting one, though it is helping a disastrous process. I had the same problem at the end in Israel-Palestine. Work with the U.S. military to take sides amongst Palestinians and contribute to the conflict, or not. I didn't. So if one can get over the moral qualms, at an operational level, it would be interesting. Do you have a sense of what they would do with the information? As for the Army, it would be in Afghanistan rather than Iraq. I would not go to Iraq. Afghanistan is a quasi-just war, often unjustly conducted. The Parliament and the Presidency are beginning to push back and trying to limit coalition operations and to induce negotiations with the Taliban. I think the Army is beginning to question the use of force, but not entirely. Do you think Afghanistan is as morally suspect? They will use the information to understand the negative effects, consequences of their operation.
He and I had like an 8-9 month email exchange after he discovered us, before he ever committed to, or ever even asked to join the program. It took him to help me understand just how complex it was.
He didn't necessarily say that he was going to be embedded with military. He sort of spoke of it as a desk job, and that it was research. And my concern was that he was going there not as an independent researcher, or not with an NGO as he had done in the past, and this time it was military. And again, I just deferred to his judgment.
Well, there's no substitute for being there, which I think is something that Michael understood completely. Culture at a distance it's second best. It's not something that you want to do. It's something that the situation sometimes makes you do.
Hello all. My greetings from Fort Benning, Georgia. After 2 intense months at Fort Leavenworth and a brief foray down to the JRTC at Fort Polk, I head out this evening for Kuwait and then Afghanistan. I'll be joining the human terrain team in Coast Afghanistan as a social scientist. I will be spending a good amount of time over the next several days in what the military calls hurry up and wait. I expect I'll be in Afghanistan for at least 9 months. While the program has proven to be controversial and widely reported, I am optimistic that given the right participants, the program has a real chance of reducing both the Afghan and American lives lost. Contrary to some of the criticism, I am not involved in covert research or activities, or in lethal targeting or interrogation. To no doubt, I will confront many challenges there, as I'm already preparing for both the real and ethical minefields. I look forward to hearing from everyone over the next year, and welcome any message of criticism, inquiry, or support.
Most people become anthropologists because they want to reach out to the other. They want to understand the other. They think that understanding the other enhances the dignity of the other. Once cultural knowledge becomes commodified, once it becomes objectified, it becomes a way of manipulating those cultural others, you've moved away from the original motivation that most anthropologists have for understanding culture. And you can only feel ambivalent about that.
Just arrived in Bagram last night, trying to catch a C-130 down to Coast today. We'll be off on the first long-term research mission shortly. The commander really gets it here. Minimum force, extending the reach of the central government, negotiating away the Taliban, supporting the police and the rule of law, etc. All the more reason to join up right now and support those commanders who are trying to change strategy. Hard day for the 82nd. Yesterday, a company commander and driver were killed by an IED attack in Bhatia. Anyway, I don't think I'm expected to duck, but to protect myself.
We had come back from a mission in Zermatt. He'd just come back from a Shura. Here's a small team, individual, Michael, that's sitting on the ground with elders, in this open space, trying to find out what the root of the problem is. How can we fix it? How can we make things better?
Hello. Thank you very much for coming. Maybe you want to sit here. We appreciate that everyone's coming forward, and we're hoping to use this as an opportunity to better understand their views on the current situation, on the coalition, and better understand their culture, so that we can respect it better.
So we were talking about the controversy around the program, and how we just couldn't understand how people could make a decision about us and not be a part of us, not even be in country with us, not do any research on that to see what we are.
To again tell them that we emphasize that we want to hear their honest and true thoughts, that we will not be hurt by strong opinions, that we will be placing this information into a report, and that it will go to the brigade commander and to the brigade staff. Is that right?
And it goes to the leaders.
It goes to the leaders of this area, our leaders of this area.
We don't put any names with anything that we hear.
Yeah.
My greetings from FOB Salerno. It's been an interesting almost 2 months out here so far. While I do not take the professional ethical dilemmas in participating in the program lightly, and in fact appreciate any discussion of dilemmas in order to ensure ethical practice, I'm struck by the fact that the strong response to this program partly reveals an exercise in anthro-group formation. In doing so, some academics have created a polemical enemy image, focusing on naming, labeling, rather than actual learning what the HTT does. We're not involved in lethal targeting at all. I'm more involved in SSR, governance, and development issues. Those issues directly related to what we've been studying for all of those years.
Michael said he never served in the military, and that on some level he sort of regretted that. And I told him, I looked at him and told him, I said, "What do you think you're doing now? You may not be a sworn soldier, but you're right in the middle of it, and you're with everybody else." And I said, "Talk about being dirty." And I said, "You're getting dirty."
I've spent my career both in academia and in the field, and I'm not sure the need to get one's hands dirty explains away intentions and what you are setting out to do, whether in the academic world or whether in the practical world. And I think that you find in both worlds good people and people who are poorly intentioned, and whether you're getting your hands dirty or not getting your hands dirty is not the difference. To me, the difference is, what are you out to achieve?
He felt that, why am I different than any other young American man and young American woman that is serving? And I have this knowledge that they don't have, or the military doesn't have, or someone doesn't have, that I can help.
He probably was pursuing what I would know of him in terms of trying to do good. I mean, essentially, how he reconciled that with being part of a forward unit, with all the things that go along with being part of a forward unit. I don't know.
Explain to him that we are the Army unit that's responsible for studying culture, politics, studying the village, studying tribes, economics, the markets, these things.
Like warlords says that you are infidel, like non-Muslim, because you are working with non-Muslims. I'm Muslim.
Okay.
I'm Muslim, you are non-Muslim.
So now we're with the Dushman.
Taliban?
Yeah.
No problem. Tell them Taliban.
Yeah.
تروح أقول مثلا دشمنان سرده طالبان سرده. Yes.
But they are from this area. They are local people.
أقول them صاحب خلق ده they ما خلق. كم من كي خلق ده؟ Yes. From this. من كي خلق باكستان تملاش شيء نقول كيف تراود. The people of this area. They are going to Pakistan and they are training. They have training in Pakistan. Then they come back.
How many people from this area?
Hello, everyone. My apologies for the mass email. I'll be back for 15 days of leave in July, spending my time between upstate New York, Toronto, and Massachusetts, Providence. Thought I'd forward the now departed 82nd Brigade Commander's congressional testimony on the impact of this team on U.S. activity in Afghanistan. Some of the statement may be a bit exaggerated. Other parts don't fully account for what our impact has been over the last 6 months. Looking forward to seeing everyone soon.
I guess it was around 10:30 in the morning, I suppose. We'd all gotten our mission assignment, so we had each of us staggered throughout the trucks. And we're coming up the back road to an area that we felt, everybody felt, I think, was the root of a lot of the problems and violence in that particular location. And as we were coming up, there was just this horrific explosion. After the IED exploded and we were waiting for the helicopter to come, it turned really cold. The wind started blowing, and it kind of started raining from out of nowhere.
We have 1 urgent surgical, 1 urgent, 3 KIA.
Roger, good copy. 6 out.
He was always doing something greater than himself. Why this as opposed to the other things? That's the difficult question we're having to answer. And I think this also relates to how other people see this death, the politicization of his death, because a lot of people will say another fallen comrade on the front lines in the war on terror. But he was not a nationalist, he was an internationalist, ideologically, philosophically, culturally. And it would be a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation of what he stood for or what he was about if he is viewed through the lens of nationalism.
In that empire, the art of cartography reached such perfection that the map of one province alone took up the whole of a city, and the map of the empire, the whole of a province. In time, those unconscionable maps did not satisfy, and the colleges of cartographers set up a map of the empire which had the size of the empire itself, and coincided with it, point by point. Less addicted to the study of cartography, succeeding generations understood that this widespread map was useless, and not without impiety, they abandoned it to the inclemencies of the sun and of the winters. In the deserts of the West, some mangled ruins of the map lasted on, inhabited by animals and beggars. In the whole country, there are no other relics of the discipline of geography.
Armed conflict involves both physical violence and also a negotiation, a sort of war over words. And that partly is over the legitimacy of violent acts and the legitimacy of violent actors.
To achieve our goals, we need a stronger, smarter, and comprehensive strategy. I've already ordered the deployment of 17,000 troops that had been requested by General McKiernan for many months. These soldiers and Marines will take the fight to the Taliban in the south and the east.
Our efforts in Afghanistan have appropriately focused on protecting the population. This is, needless to say, of considerable importance, for in counterinsurgency operations, the human terrain is the decisive terrain.
How do you make war less likely rather than more humane? When you start with that question, then you proceed to some very different conclusions about where we should put our research efforts.
For me personally, what I should do as an anthropologist of the military is ask questions about the culture within the national security state that enabled us to get into this mess in the first place. The interesting questions have to do with investigating the hubris, the mistaken cultural assumptions of American military planners, rather than helping to sort of grease the wheels for occupation.
After the Vietnam War, the Joint Chiefs of Staff dismantled a lot of programs and capabilities that they had created for Vietnam. And I am personally concerned that the same thing might happen now, in which case everything we've done now, not just HTS, but I mean across the Department of Defense, will simply be dismantled. And then next time we'll have to build it all again from scratch during the middle of a war. You know, too little, too late.
This is a growth industry. This is not something that's going to drop off the face of the military's to-do list because of a change in administration. The U.S. won't be out of Iraq and Afghanistan as quickly as a lot of people want. So we're going to have to deal with it as best we can.
I think the idea that there can be a kinder, gentler counterinsurgency war is a myth. It's a kind of dream that they can somehow do things differently.
The road ahead will be long, and there will be difficult days ahead. But we will seek lasting partnerships with Afghanistan and Pakistan that promise a new day for their people. And we will use all elements of our national power to defeat al-Qaeda.
I wrote in a memorial to Michael that just because you can't change the world, it doesn't mean that the world has to change you. When you're young, you think everything is up for negotiation, up for change. And when you look back, it feels like the rules of the game are set. And as we are unable to change the rules of the game, does that mean that what we aspire to do ought to change? I think that's precisely the test